What's up? What's up? What's up? We are back. I've been live for the last 2 hours. Let's make it a third hour. Let's go. How's everybody doing? Yo, 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 what's good, everybody? How are we doing? Happy Friday night. Happy bye week. I was just on Ted's show from 49ers Hive. I was just on Rohan's show. I don't know what happened with the audio, but, we're putting in the work tonight. So I probably won't stream for the next couple of days with the bye week coming up. Probably going to rest up. We'll see. Maybe I say I'm not going to stream, but you know me. What's up, everybody? What's up, Ryan? Hopefully my audio is better. I know I was just on Rohan's show and the audio was kind of chopping off. So I apologize for that. It should be good. I think it's a restream issue. I have a StreamYard account, and usually I don't have any issues, but I noticed that restream sometimes I have some issues with. So hopefully the audio is good here. Without further ado, let's get to it. It's Friday. We got a bye week. Let's talk some Niners. You guys dropped some questions. We're going to answer them. Let's talk about the grades of the season. The 49ers have the bye week. They're 4-4. They look great coming into the bye after that win against LA, but it hasn't been a perfect season. So let's go down the roster and just kind of break it down and see where they can improve, where they've been really good, and we'll go from there. So am I going to stream? Is that your birthday, Ryan? I will stream on your birthday. Don't worry, baby. Pablo says way better. Ryan says I'm on that grind. Yeah, audio is good. Yeah, see, I don't know what the hell was going on with StreamYard, Restream. StreamYard's got my back. Although sometimes they do mess up, but let's get to it. Let's talk about first and foremost the quarterback position. That's the biggest position, right? The leaders of the team. Unfortunately, this season has been crazy with quarterbacks. We had some issues with injuries. Unfortunately, Trey Lance, broke the foot this year. We all thought it was going to be Trey Lance season. The Niners kept Jimmy Garoppolo, and luckily they did, I guess, in a way, because, unfortunately Trey went down, but they have the backup. And Jimmy Garoppolo knows the system, and, he's coming in, and, we know what Jimmy can do. He's the game manager. If they didn't have Jimmy, they would have had to probably go with Purdy or another option, and who knows where they'd be. Obviously, Jimmy's not perfect, but I think he's played better this year. And I think that Brian Greasy's been a solid quarterback coach for him. I think he has helped. I think the shoulder surgery has helped Jimmy. The last game against LA is one of his better games he's played in his career. So, obviously, I think Jimmy's played better so far. He hasn't been perfect. The Denver game was an atrocious game. He had probably the worst game of his career that game. But ever since then, he's been very efficient. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the last couple of weeks statistically. It's just kind of crazy. So, and again, that game against LA was just like, wow, Jimmy's pushing the ball down the field to throw to Dwelly. Can he keep it up? I don't know. That's what we got to see is consistency. But overall, I think quarterback play has been about a B-. We all were excited about Trey, and I think he'll be back next year, and the development will, get to continue from there. And it's an unfortunate speed bump in his career. But overall, I think quarterback has been a B-. Hasn't been perfect, but it hasn't been awful. Again, Jimmy's played better than I've ever seen him play in a long time. So got to give him credit. Coming off shoulder surgery, I'm a little rusty when he came in, but he's been making the throws when he's needed to. A lot of drops from the receivers, so that kind of limited some of his stats over the last couple of weeks. But he's been on the money. The pass to CMC, the pass to Kittle on Sunday, that showed me some really good growth out of Jimmy. So overall, again, quarterbacks, I'm going to say B-. That's what I feel about it right now. Ryan says, let's be honest, our season wouldn't have been screwed if we didn't keep Jimmy G. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's kind of crazy how it all worked out, right? Jimmy Garoppolo, they were going to trade him. The whole offseason was Trey Lance season, get rid of Jimmy. They didn't. They re-signed him, or they did the whole contract restructure, and it was the most bizarre news. Like, it was the craziest breaking news, but it happened, and now we sitting here with Jimmy, and we know what to expect. We feel a little bit more confident than if Jimmy wasn't playing, right, without Trey Lance. Because if Trey Lance were to go down, we'd be a little bit more scared if we didn't have Jimmy, I guess, I don't know if Brock Purdy would be able to come in there and win games, because Kyle Shanahan hasn't won games without Jimmy Garoppolo. We know that Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan can coexist and win games. So overall, I think it was kind of a savior to the season right now so far. They're 4-4. It hasn't been perfect. So moving forward, running backs, it's been a crazy situation with running backs. Obviously, they got Christian McCaffrey, and that was a huge move, a huge money move. And that kind of move just gives you this guy that can dominate. But I don't think the running has been before Christian McCaffrey, right? He was a great addition, but it hasn't been what it typically has in the Shanahan era, right? Running efficiency's been down. Elijah Mitchell got hurt initially. That was tough. The youngsters, TDP, Jordan Mason, they're kind of being redshirted basically. They're not getting much. Jeff Wilson was pretty effective. They traded him for to get some draft pick out of him, get some capital. And when Jeff Wilson Jr. was there, though, they were running well, but they weren't running enough. And I feel like maybe it was scheme wise, maybe it was the game dictating the 49ers, but they just haven't been running as effective as they typically do. Now, the run game, when they do run, it hasn't been bad. They're just not running at the high efficiency rates that they usually do. Elijah Mitchell, again, injury, that was huge. I think CMC is going to bring huge, growth for this offense. And again, we've talked about how dynamic he is. He's just going to inject some light into this offense. And I think that this offense is only going to get better with CMC. Debo wasn't as effective as a runner early on this season. I think defenses stacked the box. They didn't have that threat of the outside runner or the other type of runner with Elijah Mitchell out, right? When you have Elijah in there, he's such a good versatile runner. He can go in and he can go out, and he's got that vision. They didn't really have that dual running back committee, so people knew that Debo was getting the ball, so he wasn't as effective. But I think now you have Christian McCaffrey, and it's just going to open it up. With Elijah Mitchell back, if he can stay healthy, he doesn't have to run the ball as much. And again, Debo Samuel, he doesn't have to run the ball as much, and he can focus as the receiver. And Brian and Ayuk can go out there, and you got Kittle blocking like a madman. So overall, I think also your running backs, I would probably say a B minus. They haven't been perfect, they haven't been horrible, but they just haven't been running at the rate usage I would think they should be running. And I think we talked about it before. The 49ers should be running 30 to 35 times. They just haven't been running at that high rate yet for whatever reason. So I'd say that the 49ers are maybe a B minus at running back so far, but I think that they'll get better, especially with CMC. So, you got to respect my man, Christian McCaffrey. Came in on his second week of the season with the team, second week with this team, and he goes off for 3 touchdowns. The guy's going to be a phenomenal player. He's smart. He adds so much life to this offense. So I definitely think that this offense is only going to get better, and especially the run game. So definitely got to love what CMC brings to the table. He's a smart guy. He's a hungry guy. He's going to inject confidence in Jimmy Garoppolo, which he already has. You could tell Jimmy just trusts him already. The pass he made to CMC in the corner of the end zone, that's phenomenal. I haven't seen Jimmy ever make a play like that in a long time, right? He trusted CMC to make that catch. Nobody in their right mind would sit there and make that type of catch. Very few players make that type of catch, and CMC is a special one. So that's going to give Jimmy that confidence to make those throws. And again, when Kittle had that touchdown, the defense kind of just funneled towards CMC, and they were like, "Oh my God, look, he's wide open. They got to get to CMC." And all the defense attracted to him like a magnet, and then boom, you had Kittle in the end zone. So that's going to make Jimmy's life a lot easier. So definitely running backs are going to get better. The whole offense should get better as long as they're effective and efficient and they stay consistent like we've been talking about all week, and Jimmy limits his mistakes. Because if he makes mistakes, which he's prone to do, then we know what's going to happen. So they got to continue to limit those mistakes, stay effective, and stay consistent. Now, the other part of running is the O-line, and I feel like the O-line has actually played better than anybody expected. I didn't think they were going to be as good as they are. I know they haven't been great. I'm not going to sit here and say they're the top offensive line in the league, but they're better than I thought. There was a lot of questions coming in. Laken Tomlinson, he was gone, right, to the Jets, right? He's gone to the Jets, and everybody's like, oh, God, Aaron Banks, we got to rely on this guy. He's a bust. He's going to be a bust. Everybody was writing him off. Everybody wanted to draft Asante Samuel, myself included. We didn't know what to expect with Aaron Banks, but he really transformed himself and has become a very solid player. I'm very impressed. If I had to give anybody a specific grade, I'd give Aaron Banks an A himself. But this is the whole line in general. It's Jake Jake Brendel, center. I didn't expect much out of him. He's a journeyman center, right? He's a journeyman. This is his first year really starting at center. I didn't, expect too much out of him. He's played better over the last couple of weeks. It took time for him to settle down. He hasn't been perfect, but he's made some strides over the last weeks. He's above average right now. He's a serviceable center. I don't think he's going to be the long-term guy. I think he's there. Maybe he'll get a contract from someone else if he plays pretty decent down the stretch. But they got young guys. They have Nick Zakel. They have Jason Poe. They could develop. But I think Brendel's been serviceable. I don't think he's been great, but he's hasn't been awful. There's been times where he's made some mistakes, but he hasn't been horrible. But I do think they need to improve at center overall. Right guard, you got my man Spencer Burford. Unbelievable the development he's shown. I know he hasn't been perfect. We've talked about him. What's up, 49ers updates? My man, 49ers, a Niner Gang Wolfcast says the throw to CMC probably contributed to the confidence and throwing the beautiful TD to Kittle. Yeah, 100%. Exactly what we were talking about, that the confidence from CMC is just going to spill over throughout this team for Jimmy. But going back to the O-line, my man, Spencer Burford, I talked to him in the beginning of the season, you guys know, and he just seems like a really hardworking kid, humble kid, blue-collar type guy, blue-collar baller type guy. And, I like what I've seen out of him. He's grown well. He's contributed as a starter since day one of training camp. He's had the first team reps. There's been times where he's rotated with Brunskill, but I think Burford's held his own. He's made some mistakes as a rookie. That's expected. He has to kind of cut down on some of those penalties, but they're not like pivotal penalties. Like when McGlinchey makes a penalty, you're like beating, you're just like hitting the table, like, oh my God, you're a veteran in this league. You can't be making those penalties. As a rookie, I give him a little bit more leeway, but Burford has played very good. I didn't expect him to come in and be that strong of a player right away. Obviously, Trent Williams is a high-level player. I don't think he's played at the level that we expect Trent Williams because he's so good. He's still one of the better, linemen in the whole NFL. But the injury kind of got him a little rusty. But I think that last game against the Rams, we saw the true Trent Williams kind of shaking the rust off. That slingshot block was great. He's going to continue to get better. I think the bye week's going to do him good as he continues to get healthier off that high ankle sprain. But then it brings you to Mike McGlinchey, who he's a solid run blocker. He's a good, run bulldozer, I guess you could say. He's kind of like a rhino out there. He can spearhead the run game. You run effectively to the right side. You got Kittle going there too. Kyle Juszczyk. So that right side, they can still run behind him well. It's just the pass protection. I know he's coming into the season with injuries, but he's been in this league for many years. You can't really use that as an excuse because he's never made the leap as a pass protector as you wanted to, especially as a top 10 player, right? He was a number 9 draft pick. You expect him to be a Pro Bowl type caliber player. Just isn't there in pass protecting. So I don't know. I don't know if McGlinchey comes back next year. He will be an expensive option if they keep him, and they got to sign Bosa to an extension. So honestly, I think that he hasn't played horrible, but when he makes bad plays, they stand out so much, and they're at such critical moments of the game. You're just like, wow. So his big plays, they get marked because they're at big junctions of the game. So yeah, you have to really quantify how big his mistakes have been. Like other players make mistakes, but his mistakes have been at critical junctions of the game. But overall, I'm going to give this O-line a B. Again, I never expected Aaron Banks to be the guy he was right now. He hasn't allowed a sack. Spencer Burford's been a solid contributor. Trent Williams is Trent Williams. He's only going to get better. They had to go merry-go-round on the left tackle side for a couple weeks. But I think overall the O-line has been a B. Nothing less, nothing more. They've been solid. They can get better. They can definitely clean up the mistakes, and Mike McGlinchey needs to get better. He's definitely kind of holding them back. And again, Jake Brendel started off slow, but he's been serviceable. I don't think he's been awful. So 49er updates. What are we doing Sunday? Probably just going to stay in and watch Red Zone all day. I don't know. We'll see. Unless my daughter wants to do something, we'll probably do something else. So Ryan McDonald says, as long as Jason Poe doesn't turn into Joey Hunt, then I'm good. Yeah, 100%. I think Jason Poe can develop. He looks like a very solid player. He had a good, strong training camp. This is a guy that I think that is another little gem in the making. The Niners have a lot of these gems, and I think Jason Poe is going to be one of those little undrafted gems. So Debbie says, hoping for health, no turnovers, and consistent play for 4 quarters each game. 100%. We need to make sure that they are consistent and they stay healthy. Wide receivers. Let's move on to wide receivers. This is a group that's kind of underachieved. I think Brandon Ayuk has been by far and away the best receiver. We talked about it yesterday. He's my MVP of the offense. Really, he's been very consistent. He's grown. Last 3 games, he's been the best receiver on the field. 80-yard average at least over the last 3 games. He's got 3 touchdowns. You can tell he's really taking that breakout season serious. He's becoming a leader. His route running has just become even better. I definitely think that Brandon Ayuk is a guy that is becoming a young leader, and he's playing solid football. The rest of these wide receivers, I feel, just haven't reached what we thought. Danny Gray has been a little bit of a disappointment. He's a rookie. Do I think that he'll be a disappointment in his whole career? No. He's young. He's very inconsistent. He needs to work on blocking. Ray McLeod, been a decent returner, above decent, I guess. He's been not bad as a returner, but a receiver, he's missed some big catches. Those deep passes. He's got to get better at that. And I feel like, again, he's not a big time receiver. He's going to be your fourth option, but as a fourth option, if you're getting those deep pass options, you need to make the most of those opportunities. But I feel like Ray McLeod hasn't been what everybody thought he was going to be, because Shanahan hyped him up, so he's going to be a big time weapon on this team. But I just think that Ray has kind of hasn't lived up to the preseason hype that we all expected. We thought he was going to be this big time guy, get some end arounds, some jet sweeps, some slants in there, little screens. They haven't really used them much. But again, he is playing special teams. That takes a toll on your body. So obviously he's not going to have a lot of snaps as a fourth, fifth option as receiver. Juwan Jennings, I think he's been okay. He's been solid. We expected him to take this leap this year, like a big breakout. I just haven't seen it. And he hasn't had any touchdowns. Last year he had 6. He's still got a lot of, football left. He's still got another second half of the season. So maybe he can score more touchdowns. But I feel like Jennings hasn't taken that leap we thought he was going to take. He's still a phenomenal blocker. He's a big time, a physical guy. He's a guy that does the dirty work, but he hasn't really improved in terms of his skill set to this offense. But he's still a good role player, vital to the blocking game. Again, Brandon Ayuk to me has been that guy. He's been phenomenal in terms of receiving. He leads this team in all receiving categories. And then he brings me to Deebo Samuel. I think he's been a little bit of a disappointment. He's getting paid $71 million. I think a lot of teams have been keying on him. I know this offseason he didn't get to train as much because of the contract situation, and he didn't want to get hurt. But I will say, and I talked about this yesterday with Rohan, that I think Deebo has been one of the more disappointing players on this team. No, it's not that he hasn't played well. He's still an effective player. He's still a big, important part of this team. I think Deebo will be a phenomenal player moving forward, and he's still going to get, big-time stats. But he hasn't been the best player on this team. He hasn't been the catalyst that we thought he was going to be. He hasn't been better than Brandon Ayuk. I think that overall, as a group, the wide receivers are a C+. I don't think they're better than that. They've been average. They've dropped a lot. Deebo's had a lot of drop passes. I think Brandon Ayuk has been an A, but the rest of the group, they've maybe been a C. So overall, give the wide receivers a C+. I don't think that's bad, but, there have been reasons why they've lost games, big drops, in critical stretches, and that goes to the wide receiver group. They've dropped big passes, and sometimes they just haven't been as consistent. So overall, right now the offense has kind of been inconsistent, and I feel that wide receiver play has been a big part of that. They've been throwing the ball a lot, and these receivers have not been able to catch the ball consistently. I think they'll improve. They've looked a little better over the last couple of weeks, and I think once Deebo gets healthy, I think he's going to turn it up second half of the season. I think Deebo second half of the season is going to be what we expected. I think he's going to go crazy. But yeah, definitely first half of the season, I don't think it's gone as well as Deebo's wanted it to. But he's still number 8 in Yak. He's still a phenomenal playmaker. But, I think that they will get better and overall as a team. Get some comments. David Yank says Ray needs to come down with a few of those bombs. Yeah, 100%. That's what we were saying. Is he just is inconsistent with catching some of those deep passes. He's been there, man. He's had them. You got to hold on to that, man, because he's had opportunities. PJ says Ayuk is criminally underrated. It's crazy how underrated he is. He's not getting a lot of respect, but I think he's been by far and away the best offensive player on this on this team this year. He's to me the offensive MVP. Not again. Wolfgang says Deebo's been lackluster, but I think play calling for has been stale of too. Yeah, I think that's definitely a factor too. Like, they haven't really called the glitzy plays of Debo that they were last year. Like, you saw Debo last year. It was just like this, wow, like you've never seen anything like it. But I think also, too, defenses have kind of figured when Debo is lined up in a certain way, they're going to key in on him and try to neutralize him. And again, too, they didn't have Elijah Mitchell, in the offense, and they didn't have some of their guys like Trent Williams. And again, Ray has been kind of lackluster too. So I feel like teams know that Debo is such a focal point, and they really grinded that film. They tried to take him out, but I agree too. They haven't used him in those roles like the jet sweeps. They haven't really thrown those little bubble screens to him. They haven't been effective in getting him in those plays that he was effective in last year and even years past. I feel though, because Debo did say he wanted to kind of play a lot more receiver this year, so they're trying them out as a traditional receiver more so, and it just hasn't been working. He doesn't separate off the line like Brandon Ayuk. His route running obviously, it's a little lacking compared to Ayuk. So, in the terms of them trying to use him as a receiver, it hasn't been effective. There's been times where opposing cornerbacks have really locked him. Patrick Surtain did a really good job against him in Denver. So I think they got to get a little bit more creative. I agree with this and open them up, kind of get them all over the place. That's what made them so good last year. Is they used them in so many different ways, and the defense was just so confused on how they were going to use Debo. They kind of did that with CMC this week. They used CMC in the way that Debo was utilized last year, and I think they need to go back into that just creative mold. And maybe CMC is going to be a guy that unleashes that creativity from Kyle. So we'll see. What should I do with my JJ Stokes jersey? Showboat says, yo, that's a classic, man. Keep your JJ Stokes jersey, baby. Keep it, man. That's a classic. I want a JJ Stokes jersey. If you don't want it, send it my way. I'll take good care of it. Tommy says, need to beat the Chargers. If we don't, we are pretenders. Even if we don't beat them, I still don't think we're necessarily pretenders, but it definitely doesn't look good for us because they're a good team on paper, right? They have been, and they have a lot of injuries right now. So if we lose to them, that's definitely a bad loss coming off of a bye. You don't want to lose off a bye to a team that's kind of going through a lot of issues themselves. So yeah, in a way, you're probably right that they're contenders, but they do have a lot of favorable games that can kind of boost their confidence. And in the NFC, because you got to remember the Chargers are in the AFC. In the NFC, man, it's wide open. I think if the Niners make it to the playoffs and they're healthy, they could beat most of these teams. And maybe the Eagles give them fits because they're a really strong team, but they haven't played anybody good, really, other than the Vikings, maybe the Cowboys. So I don't know if we'd still write them off, but I agree. They have to beat the Chargers. You don't want to come off the bye, get healthy, have that momentum, and then lose because I think that would be a shot to their confidence. Drunk Polish says, hopefully now that CMC is balling, Debo can get some more touches and balls thrown his way on the slants and sweeps. Yeah, I agree, and that's what I want to see out of him too. I want to see CMC definitely continue where he left off, but it needs to open up Debo, and then they got to utilize him more because he's so great in open space, and I feel like they haven't been getting him the ball in those moments, in those open space moments. And I think now the defense can key in on CMC, and it can open it up for Debo to go slant and bubble screen and things like that. So yeah, I agree with that. That CMC, I think, is going to open it up just for everybody. Again, it does make Jimmy more confident. He's going to see the field better. Hopefully he goes through his progressions, and he can see that Debo is going to be open. And if you can get Debo that ball in space, it's so hard to tackle him, So, yeah, the Eagles have such an easy schedule, man. Am I going on IG tonight? I don't know. I've been live on YouTube. I've been grinding on YouTube, so we'll see. I need to eat. I got to make my daughter some dinner here. I'm not going to stay much live longer on YouTube, but we'll go on Instagram if I'm feeling up to it. We're probably going to do 15 more minutes on this show, and then I'm going to take a break. David says, can we get a couple of jet sweeps a game with our speedsters? Ray, yeah, man, that's what I see. They got to make sure that they open it up. That's what I was saying is Ray, I thought they were going to be more creative with a guy like that with his, his skill set. But we'll see what Kyle wants to do in the second half. We'll see. King J says that the Eagles are overrated. Yeah, we said that last night. I was talking about them last night after the game on Instagram, and I feel the same way. They haven't played anybody great. Definitely good talent. I like Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, respect them. Big play, Darius Slay. They have some great players, but who have they beaten, really? I feel like they're like the Cardinals from last year, the Steelers a couple of years back where they were like undefeated, but they didn't play anybody. And then once they got hit in the mouth and lost, they fell apart. I feel like that is what's going to happen to the Eagles. They're so good right now. They're on a heater. But once they get beat and someone punches them in the mouth and out bullies them, they're gonna fall apart. So I don't know. That's just the way I feel. I feel you're right, King. They are overrated. Um, so let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball, and get this rolling. So D line, I think that the D line started off so strong. I was gonna sit here, and if they would have played the way that they played all season, from the first couple weeks, it's definitely an A. But you got to kind of temper your expectations. Bosa has been flat out great, but he had the injury when he came back against the Chiefs. He probably had one of his worst games of his career. Unfortunately, playing through the groin injury. No Armstead. Kinlaw has been a disappointment because of the injuries. Unfortunately, Armstead's loss has been huge. They haven't been able to stop the run. But you have guys like Omenahu and Ebukam who've really stepped up. You've seen flashes from Drake Jackson. I like what I've seen out of those guys. Ebukam or Omenahu might not be back next year. One of those guys is going to get paid, maybe both of them. And the good news is we have Drake Jackson, who's going to be on this team for several years. He's a rookie, so he'll be cheaper option. So whoever he lets go, he'll take over the spot of one of those guys. But Ebukam and Omenahu have been really nice. Overall, the D line has been okay, but I definitely thought they were going to be better. The last couple of weeks, they haven't been as good as I expected because of the injuries, right? Falling apart, no Armstead. I'll give them a B. They were really strong to start this season, man. They were so dominant up front. And then I think the injuries took their toll, but I'll give them a B. It hasn't been horrible, but they did drop off in productivity over the last couple of weeks. They weren't getting as much pressure overall. Definitely hurts when you don't have your best player, Nick Bosa, in the game, but that's definitely a group that really needs to lock in and continue to get havoc up front. If they can pressure these quarterbacks, then it's going to help the whole defense. It's going to take pressure off the back end, and make this defense more powerful, like they were in the beginning of the season. In the beginning of the season, the first 5 weeks, the 49ers were the top defense in the league, and then they kind of fell off because the Chiefs came in and they worked us. They were able to kind of neutralize the pressure. Nick Bosa was getting chipped a lot, and that was his first game back after the injury. They weren't getting any pressures. I think they got 5 pressures that game, which is nothing compared to what they were getting throughout the rest of the season. So definitely need to turn it back up a notch. I hope Armstead comes back. They need Armstead because the other factor of this D-line is run defense, and they've been getting ran through a lot over the last couple of weeks, especially Atlanta. That Atlanta game is when it really started. They were just getting crushed, ran up the middle, boom, boom, boom. And I think they're missing Armstead really badly. Him and Givens would be a nice duo in that middle. Better than him and Kevin Givens and Ridgeway. Armstead definitely is a guy they need back. They need back. Tommy says if Armstead doesn't come back, the D is in trouble. I agree with this. I think he needs to come back because, again, the defense has played well overall, but these last few weeks, it hasn't been like that elite defense that we wanted from the beginning, that we saw in the beginning. Credit to Fred Warner for really going out there and having a masterful all-pro type game. Fred Warner was the guy that really put this team on the back. I know Bosa had a good game against the Rams, but it was Fred Warner. He really took over, and that brings me to the linebackers. So when they're healthy, this linebacking crew is better than any linebacking crew in the NFL. We buy hands down. We all know that. Greenlaw, Azeez Al-Shahir, and Fred Warner. That's a scary trio, but they've been dealing with injuries. Azeez Al-Shahir with the MCL. Greenlaw now has had the injury as well. That's kept him out of the game, the calf issue. So those are things that really need to be looked at, and hopefully they can come back healthy. We need Greenlaw. We need Azeez Al-Shahir. Fred Warner's played up and down through the year. There's been games where you're like, man, Fred Warner's just so good. Then there's games where like, he's missing tackles. He's playing aggressive, and I think he's trying to do everything when players are out. And that's Fred Warner. He tries to go above and beyond and play Superman. I mean, he made that spear tackle, which was crazy. That's him being Superman. But Fred Warner tries to do so much, and sometimes it hurts him. But I think the linebackers, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles has been okay. He's nothing special. Oren Burks, I like him. A good special teamer, but he's not a starter. When he has to go in there as a starter, you can see the drop-off between him and Greenlaw and him and, Azeez. So the injuries have really brought down this defense. Linebackers, I think they started off at a very high level, but I give them a B-. Fred Warner hasn't been the best this year, but the last game was just flat out amazing. He's had his moments, but the injuries have really took a toll on the linebackers. But we got to get Greenlaw back, got to get Azeez back, and I think they'll be okay. And there's room for improvement on every position on this team, but definitely room for improvement for these linebackers. I say a B-, C+ at worst, because they have been missing tackles, and the run defense has been getting like I said, over the last couple of weeks, the run defense has just been kind of gashed through. They kind of fixed that a little bit against the Rams. The Rams don't really have a running back. If you remember that game against the Chiefs, man, and that's a dominant team. McCole Hardman jet sweep, jet sweep, jet sweep. He had Jarrett McKinnon walk all over him. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Oh, I'm having nightmares of that game. Atlanta ran all over him. So it hasn't been pretty. Run defense has not been good, and they've been missing a lot of tackles. So C plus B minus for the linebackers overall. They got to get better. And I think they will once Greenlaw and Aziz comes back. Greenlaw, I want to give Greenlaw a gold star. I want to give him an A. He has been so good. That first game of the season, he made a lot of mistakes, a lot of penalties, and I was like, oh, what's going on with this guy? After that, completely different person. He got his contract extension and has been a flat-out beast for this defense. So shout out to Dre Greenlaw. He's been really good, big-time tackler. He's been all over the field, playing aggressive. So can't single anybody out. I think Greenlaw has been the best linebacker on this team, better than Fred Warner. That first game, though, was ugly, and I was ripping him apart because those penalties were so bad, man. He was playing so aggressive, but he cleaned it up, and he's gotten better. We need Dre Greenlaw back if they're going to make a run through this second half of the season. So, Showboat says, this is a good question. Hufanga doesn't look the same since the concussion. Yeah, I talked about this yesterday, actually, on my mid-season, and I said, Hufanga's been the most improved player on defense, I think, just because he's made such a big leap in the second year. But you're right, those last 2 weeks, he's missed a lot of tackles. And I think a lot of it has to do with the concussion. I don't know if he's playing at 100%, because when you have a concussion, you're off balance. And I still think it was lingering towards those last 2 weeks, because he missed some bad tackles. His angles he was taking were really poor. And he's a smart guy. His instincts are really, really strong. So I think Hufanga wasn't playing, at his top level after the concussion. So bye week definitely should help him. I think safety play has been okay overall. It started out really strong. Beginning of the season, I think our safeties were probably the best in the league, but it has taken a little dip. Jimmy Ward definitely needs to get healthy. They had him playing nickel. He's not really been able to play his safety spot. Playing with one hand limits him, so he can't really jam at the line, which he normally does. Tashawn Gibson played very admirably. I think he had some good moments throughout the first half of the season. I think he was a solid veteran replacement. But I think Jimmy Ward needs to get back into that safety role. But again, Gibson played well. He earned himself that role. And again, Jimmy Ward playing with one hand has been limiting him. So Hufanga played such high level in those first 3 games, man. I was just like, wow. I mean, he looks like a superstar, right? All the hype was on him. Then the concussion came, and then he kind of started to drop off a little bit. He's still a really good player. I think he's still a talented player, and he's going to get better. He's only 22, and I think the future is really bright for Hufanga. But he kind of cooled down from that hot start. All the comparisons to Troy Polamalu, I still think that he's very comparable, with the instincts, obviously the hair. But I think he definitely has that mold. We know he trained with them. But overall, safety play can get better. I think it's dropped off in the last 2 weeks. Maybe paired with the defensive line not playing as good, the linebackers being banged up, and then no Emmanuel Mosley. So these safeties have had a lot more work on them. I'll say overall a B- for these safeties, because they started off very, very, very good, especially Hufanga, man. When he started this season, it was like, wow, this guy's going to be special. He still is going to be really good, but he has kind of tapered down a little bit. And I like to comment, the concussion may have affected him a little bit, because he has been missing a lot of tackles. I agree with that. Niner Gang Wolfcast says, that and a mixture of Chune's trying to limit Hufanga through the scheme since he showed to be a playmaker. This is a good comment. This is a good topic to talk about, is when you are playing good, can you maintain that? Can you be consistent? Because, okay, people are going to look at the film. They're going to say, okay, this guy, we have to start taking him out. We have to start accounting for him. When you become good, when you start getting, all this hype and start getting attention, coaches are going to look at that and they're going to say, okay, we're going to have to neutralize this guy. And if you're a great player, you learn how to adapt from everybody keying on you. If you're just a good player or a guy that, has some flashes here and there, some days you're going to get dominated because you can't adjust to that ability of other teams keying in on you. So if he's a great player, which I think he can be, if he wants to take that leap, he's got to be able to make the adjustments. Just like teams make adjustments to the players have to now adjust and look back at the film and say, okay, these guys are doing this to me. What can I do to change where I can be effective like I was in the first half of the season? So that's a very good comment. I think teams have keyed in on him, and then that's what happens when you're, getting attention. Like just like Debo, going back to Debo, teams were keying in on him. So what is he going to do to flip it and make himself the All Pro that he was like last year? And that goes back to coaching too. What are they going to do? What are they going to implement to get these guys to raise above the adjustments other teams are making on them? Because teams are adjusting to Hufanga. That first half of that season, those first few games, it was like, wow, we've never seen a player like this. The amount of development he made in those first few games from last year was crazy. You hadn't really seen a leap like that. And that's why I said I think he's probably the most improved on defense. I mean, yes, he's had some bad weeks in the last couple of weeks with the tackles, but I mean, he still made a massive leap from where he was as a rookie. So, but they can get better. The safeties definitely can get better. They've kind of fallen off. But again, no pressure up front without Armstead, without Bosa for a while. It'll get better. So, and then cornerbacks, man, if Emmanuel Mosley didn't get hurt, this would be the best cornerbacking situation in the NFL. They were so good. Emmanuel Mosley and Charvarius Ward were such a damn good duo. It pisses me off because you guys know me. If you know me, I'm such a big guy on cornerbacks. I've always loved cornerbacks since I was a young buck. Seeing Deion Sanders coming into this team, and I was like, wow, this was the piece they were missing. Seeing Eric Davis, seeing Merton Hanks, and I've just always been a cornerback guy. And I've been screaming for them to get top flight cornerbacks every year. I remember when Deion, though, was on this team. I loved him because not only was he great as a Niner for that year, and he helped the team win the championship, and he was the best defensive player in the league, he was phenomenal as a baseball player. And I just loved him. I marveled at him because this guy was a two-sport player. He would go play for the Braves. Such an awesome player. I loved the Braves growing up. That's all we could watch in Vegas was the Braves. So you had this guy going out there, killing it in baseball, coming into the football season, killing it as a Niner. I mean, the guy was phenomenal. And you're just like, wow, what a guy. So I love cornerbacks because of Deion. And, of course, he was flashy. He had that swagger. And you always were looking for a premium cornerback ever since Deion left. And I thought we had that duo with Mosley and Charvarius Ward. And they were probably the best duo I've seen this team have in lots of years. Unfortunately for Mosley, he went down. And that was probably the biggest injury I think this team has suffered. That was rough, man, because Mosley was playing at a very high level. He was probably going to get a huge contract. I think he was out on a pace for a Pro Bowl season, and then you take him away, and then Ward has the groin injury, and teams are going to start picking on him. And no disrespect to Ambry Thomas, Diamador Lenore, and Sam Womack, they're not what Mosley is. He's been on the team for several years. He's worked his way up, and, that's a big loss. So cornerback play, I think initially was the best on this team. It probably was an A. But over the last couple of weeks, the cornerbacks have been getting, worked on. They haven't been really well. But again, they're young cornerbacks. They're thrown into the fire, but that's a position they have to get better at. And you have Jason Verrett, right? Jason Verrett, will he even play this season? We don't know. He's, cleared to practice. He didn't play this week. He's got a lot of injury history. If he gets in the game, how many snaps are they going to give him? Is he going to be a high volume cornerback? Is he just going to be a rotationary guy? Can he even play at the same level he used to be? The injury, history has mounted up on him. He's had some significant history, and he's got a lot of tread on those tires, unfortunately. So how effective can Jason Verrett be? If he can play with the potential that we know Jason Verrett can be, it might be a steal on this team. This might be a savior. But right now, Lenore, Womack, Ambry Thomas, those guys are young, and teams are going to pick on them. But can they develop? Yeah, they sure can. But they got to develop quickly because this secondary used to be a very strong point on this team when Mosley was in there, but kind of fallen a little bit, obviously. I'll say overall, I'd say C+. Definitely took a huge toll when they lost Emmanuel Mosley, and it's unfortunate. But, they can play better. They can definitely play better, but, they got some young guys, and they're going to be tested. And I think the biggest test was that Kansas City game. When you play a top-flight team and you just get crushed all aspects, it's tough. They started out so strong, but those few games they've played without Mosley have really, really, really derailed them. But I think they'll get them better, and I think they'll improve. Again, they're young guys. They've shown flashes, but definitely took a toll without without the guy that's been there for years, But Charvarius Ward has been playing great, too. I think he definitely has been worth all the money. So where do I rank Mooney Ward among CBs this year? I say top 10. I think early on, maybe he would have been top 5. But again, he did take a little bit of a hit that Chiefs game. The injury did limit him a little bit, but he played great against the Rams this last week. It was a good bounce back game. But I think he's still a top 10 cornerback. He's played well. Again, those first few games, man, he was just clamps. I mean, money well spent. I think he has been effective. But these last few games, definitely cornerbacks, they haven't had their best. But I think that Chiefs game, I think, was the one that really hurt everybody. And I think that took everybody's ability down, because you got to look at it this way. This was the best team they've played. This was an elite team. And if you get, beaten up and thrown you get thrown around against an elite team, that really should drop your rating down a lot, because yes, you may have beaten a lot of these weaker teams, and you should, but when you play a top-notch team and it shows you where you're at, and if you can't even hang it with them, that takes you down a few notches. And they didn't make adjustments. They were getting thrown at. Mahomes really picked on Ward. And, I know he had the groin injury that game. Coming into that game, he probably wasn't 100%. But, man, oh, man, he definitely got a lesson taught to him. But he bounced back really well against the Rams. Still think he's a top 10 quarterback because he had a strong first few games. Again, I think they'll all turn it around. But secondary definitely misses Mosley. To me, that's the biggest injury that they had. So that's it. That's a quick little show tonight. Just wanted to go through some of these players, go through, the midseason grades, my thoughts on some of them. 3 shows today. I'm exhausted. I'm going to eat. Maybe we'll come back on Instagram, but appreciate the support. Thank you. 8K today. We hit 8K. Thank you guys. Love you. Appreciate all the support, and have a good weekend, everybody. I know there's no game this weekend, so get some rest. Enjoy your family. Enjoy your friends. Do something fun, so the week can go by fast, because it's been a long week, and it's going to be even a longer week because we still got a whole other week to wait until the 49ers play Sunday Night Football against the Chargers. Have some fun, enjoy yourself, and get some rest, and appreciate the support. I love you. Bang, bang. Nana gang.